Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Daylise. Daylise. Okay? That's my middle name. I love it. I love it. I've taken some time off. I haven't been on here since June 22nd. June 22nd. Let me see how many days that was. Let's see here. Let me count the days. Hold up. Had to take a break. Had a lot going on. Haven't been on since last Thursday, 22nd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is the 21st day. I'm back, guys. Had to take some time for myself. Had to take some time to reinvent myself, refresh myself. It's making its way. Reloving myself. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got adult children, you got grandchildren, you got significant friends, SOF, significant other friends. I'm not going to mention any names, but it's okay. We're going to go in our book. Everything happens for a reason. Let's talk about the fat, skinny, and tall. Yeah, let me stand up for a minute. Hold up. Hold up. Let's stand up. I don't want to see my hair. Yeah, I'm a little thick. I wouldn't say I'm fat, but I'm a little thick. See? Hold up. I got to put it down. See? I'm a size 16. So let's talk about this fat, skinny, tall, and short. Let's face it, when we talk about self-acceptance, we're really talking about liking ourselves. I've learned to like myself because I can change it. Because if I decide to lose weight, I'm going to lose it for myself. Not to satisfy no man, not to satisfy my kids, not to satisfy society. Okay? I'm here to satisfy me. Me. So the song said, take me as I am, or have done thing at all. Mary J. Blige said, take me as I am. So I'll let you know on a deep, dark secret. Sometimes we fail at liking ourselves. We go about it the wrong way. We think it's about having some big crush on ourselves because that's what we experience when we really like someone else. But that's not what it's like for people who really like themselves. It can be we know ourselves too well to have a crush on ourselves. Okay? If you want to like yourself, accept yourself as you are. Accept who you are. Accept how you look. Unless you want to change it. But don't change it for nobody else. Change it for yourself. See, I got eyeshadow on. I want to try it out. I like that. I like lips. The lip gloss. See, I'll show you. I'm going to kind of look at my pocket here. See, metallic. I got away from the black. I'm going natural. See? Natural. Yeah. Put it on. Natural. For most people, that's all liking yourself really means. You see who you are. You let in the idea that you have good qualities. Everybody got good qualities. We just got to fine tune them. You stop giving yourself such a hard time about your bad qualities. Isn't this what we do with our friends? We just accept them. Why wouldn't we do this with ourselves? Then, as you go through the pieces of who you are that you've had trouble accepting, it helps to remember that here too, everything happens for a reason. Okay? Everything happens for a reason. Maybe if you had trouble accepting something about the way you look, some of us accept the way our stomach, our legs, our eyes, our hair. We want to get contacts. No, I chose to dye my hair red because that's the color I like. Yeah, I like black hair. I like gray hair, but that's something I changed for me, not for nobody else. Okay? Maybe you've had trouble accepting something about the way you look. How can you like yourself if you're fat, skinny, tall, short, or homely? Okay? But there's a reason for that too. Maybe the same reason we've been talking about here, to help you accept yourself in a cosmic kindergarten. Everything that happens is in some way a gift or an opportunity. Let's say that you struggle with being overweight. Sure, lose some pounds if you want to, but also know that you carry around a physical reminder of your need for self-acceptance. Every time you look at yourself and you have an opportunity to say, for me to like myself, I have to like all of myself. We accept our flaws when we see them as a vehicle for something that we have happened ourselves. Otherwise, maybe there's a prideful element in your personality. And so being overweight is a way of keeping you humble. Maybe there's a perfectionist part of you, and a few extra pounds are a way of forcing you to remember that everything doesn't have to be perfect. Oh, that's why I have a big ass, a woman said when I told her this. Here's the discipline. Find your way to liking yourself by looking at what you have trouble accepting. Asking yourself, how is this good? And search for an answer, as if the wise guru on the planet had given you this as the theme of your meditation. Ask yourself, how is this good? You've not found the answer yet because you've never asked the question. We talked about fat, skinny, tall, and short. Now we're going to go over the review of Try Not to Try. Ultimately, self-acceptance is the matter of seeing. You see that by not accepting yourself, you're doing to yourself what was done to you. Then you look for more ways to accept yourself. The one thing you don't do is try to accept yourself. It won't work. And you don't need it. Everyone who works at helping people change understand that trying is not the solution. People try all the time and fail, like trying to lose weight, trying to keep your desk clear, trying to tolerate people who annoy you. You try to hold on by your fingertips for a little while, and then it all falls apart. And yet people succeed all the time without trying. I know a woman who kept trying this diet. I think I'm this woman in this story, guys. Trying to diet to work. The scale just told her numbers. The mirror just showed her images. She was used to seeing. But then one summer day, walking down the street, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a darkened store window. She was horrified by this completely unprepared for glimpse of herself. Finally shocked, she saw that gave her all the motivation she needed. Here's another example. Who changed because he saw. This was a guy who smoked. All his friends and family had been trying to get him to stop for years. You know how certain people tell you, you need to stop drinking. They try and try and try. And you like, well, it's my body. It ain't yours. It's my life. Then you got people that you try diets. You try all these slim underwear, slim socks, slim creams, but that ain't how you got it on. So he kept trying, nothing worked. Then his cousin, a lovely young woman in the prime, died after a long illness. The whole family was there. About an hour after she died, he went to say goodbye to her. He bent over to kiss her on the forehead. It wasn't just that, her skin was cold. It had a sensation he had never experienced before. He felt death. He felt death. And with that, he saw that he needed to see to be able to stop smoking. He never smoked again. Never. That's all of us need. Over the years, I've tried to put my finger on what pushes people over the line toward making real change. The best answer I found is that it is this seeing. We see all the time, but suddenly we see something new and different that pierces us, that digs in the core of us to say, hey, got to stop eating this stuff. Got to change. Got to get my fruits and vegetables. I'm not getting any younger. You know, you got to do self-talk to yourself. Now, look, you know you don't need them donuts. You don't need that whole bag of cookies. Why are you eating ice cream? You need to be eating yogurt. Why are you eating stuff that you know that you don't need to be eating? Why are you eating all that fried chicken and you should be eating baked chicken? Pierces to the core. It feels as dramatic as the difference between the darkness of sleep and the light of awakening. You go see, it's dark. You don't see nothing. Cover your eyes, close your eyes. What do you see? You see nothing. You're open. It's just that we also need something to make us see. And that's why the bad things that happen to us have the power to produce real change in the area of self-acceptance and every other. Nothing wakes you up and makes you feel like an explosion. Boom. Now, our next topic from June 22nd, 2023. Practice makes perfect. I had to keep practicing how to drive to make sure I stopped at the stop sign. My son took me, he said, Mom, you don't play video games, but I'm going to show you. You're driving, Mom, stop. You're over the line, back up. Do it again. The more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you smile, you get better at it. The more you study, you get better at it. The more you meditate, you get better at it. The more you go around inspiring others in spite of what you're going through. Praise him in the midst. Don't just praise him when it's good. Praise him in the midst. Just tell him thank you. Inspire others. Laugh in the midst of it. Elevate yourself. Tell yourself, I got this. God got this for me. I had a resident tell me, scoop it up, throw it up, scoop it up, throw it up. Say, here, God, here's the day. It's Thursday. I'm scooping it up. There it is. So it's a funny thing about the lessons we learn in life. No matter how much it costs us to learn them, no matter how deeply they've etched in our hearts, sometimes we forget them anyway. We need a way to put them in practice when we've forgotten a little of what we've learned. So, in this case, how do we remember to accept ourselves when we start sliding back to our old patterns? If change happens when you see something big and new and meaningful, the key to maintaining that change is continuing to see. Look, go look in the mirror at yourself. Take a look at yourself. So we have to see when we're sliding back to our old patterns. This requires vigilance. Too often, self-rejection comes in disgust of construction criticism or much needed kick in the ass. Okay? But if you can see that you're getting on your case for stuff you know has been very hard for you to change, then this is just self-rejection. See it for what it is. A simple way to get rid of self-rejection is to ask, is this helpful? Is this helpful? Be honest. You've just said, God, I'm so fat. Okay, so tell me, does that help? No. I can't imagine it does. So get in the habit of answering back to yourself. That's not helpful. Every time you say something self-rejecting, putting your own self down, another way to put an end to self-rejection is ask yourself whether what you're telling yourself is what a friend would say or what an enemy would say. Okay? Self-talk. And here's the voices that you talk to yourself. Everything that's in here filtrates out. It shows. When you, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm having a bad day. Okay, you're going to have a bad day because you just said it. What you speak, it comes to life. I'm going to repeat that. Another way to put an end to self-rejection is ask yourself whether what you're telling yourself is what a friend would say or what an enemy would. Friends are supportive. Enemies put us down and undermine our confidence. Don't be around people that's negative. They're trying to undermine you, constantly putting you down, telling you, girl, you fat. You know you shouldn't wear that. Look at your leg. Oh, look at this. Look at that. Oh, you shouldn't wear that. That don't look good on you. Oh, you shouldn't be with this and you shouldn't do that. Okay. So if you say something that an enemy would say, stop. Just stop. Just stop. Answer back. I'm going to be supportive to myself. As a friend, what I have to say to myself, then say something supportive. I'm beautiful. Take me as I am, or have nothing at all. I'm not the best singer, but I try. So I'm accepting it. That I can't hit all the notes I used to do. I was a soprano. Alto, I may be a tenor. So it's do, a dear, a female dear, accept yourself. Me, my name, I love myself. Smile, smile today. All righty. Another good way to maintain self, to remind yourself, I'm not no superwoman. And all I can do is try to do my best. When people struggle with self-deception, I've noticed that they judge themselves from too many angles. You judge from head, you go from the right, to the left, you look up, you look down, and then you go all around. You judge yourself. And if you're a new mom, for example, that's tough enough. All by itself. It can be hard to accept that you're plenty good enough mom. I used to think that being a single mom, I didn't think I was enough for my children. No matter who was in my life, I kept telling myself, I ain't plenty good enough. But materialism for children, you can't buy love. Money can't buy love. Toys can't buy love. Children needs quality time more than quantity. The quantity will be there. Give them the quality. But to think that you'll be able to look like $1,000,000 at the same time, girl, bye. When your mom, sometimes you don't even have time to do your hair. You get a shot, you shower, shit, shave, cook, clean, wash clothes, make sure they get to school. In the meantime, you end up forgetting about yourself. It's just not fair. Most of us can barely do one thing in life. And to do that one thing well, we have to let most other things go. So my suggestion out there in YouTube land, for everything happens for a reason, just do 3 things in one day. Don't try to be, I got to go to the grocery store. I got to do this. I got to do that. Yeah, you got 10 fingers, but you only got 24 hours. And some of it you need to rest, meditate, study, meditate, laugh hysterically, spend time with yourself, self-care. Take care of yourself because ain't nobody else going to do it. Finally, if you've been getting down on yourself, maybe this thing you're struggling with just isn't you. You want to be you, but it isn't. Maybe if you come up with some great idea for a piece you want to write for a local newspaper, but then you sit alone, and you can't bring yourself to put words down on paper. So why torture yourself? Maybe it's you to have a good ideas, but it's not you to sit alone in a room for hours at a time and produce something out of nothing. Remember, self-acceptance begins and ends with being able to say, this is who I am. I really am. And it's okay. And what's made all this growth into self-acceptance possible for you is that something happened in your life. And the meaning of what happened was you could look at it and say, I'm not going to do to myself what was done to me. That's the review from June 22nd. Practice makes perfect. Try not to try. Fat, skinny, tall, and short. All right. Give me 1 minute. I got to get some water. All right. All right. We're going about smooth sailing. Remember to shift your energy. All right, guys. Give me 1 moment. Hold on. Let me check. I want to have a shout out to Prophetess Tanya Birdsong Nichols here this morning. I like my glasses, but I guess I'll put them back up here. You know what I mean? All right. Smooth. It's called Sail On, Honey. Good times never felt so good. Smooth sailing over troubled seas. Like easy. Gotta be easy. Smooth sailing. All right. Let me touch up my lipstick. My lip gloss. It's natural. All righty here. Smooth sailing over troubled seas. Reason 3, to show you that you can let go. You gotta let it go. You gotta scoop it. Let it go. Okay? The journey of life takes place over troubled seas. Life is full of things that scare the crap out of us. Some fears are perfectly reasonable, but some are terribly damaging. Anybody got a fear of something out there? Yeah, we all have fears. They lock us in their grip, preventing us from embracing an important part of life. Then we go through some painful experience and realize the reason we went through it was to give us a way to live without fear. Sometimes the lesson hits us between the eyes. Bang. One guy was in a near fatal car crash. I've been in 5 car crashes and none of them was my fault, but God still got me for a reason. He was told that there'd be a moment when his heart had stopped and he'd been quite literally brought back to life. He'd always been afraid of being poor, so he'd saved every penny. But having faced death and survived, he didn't even ever again want to let his life be ruled by his fear of not having money. Now it was his time to embrace life. Sometimes we're shown a way to live without fear, without even realizing it. I think about a friend of mine, Mary, who also went through a wrestling match with death. Some of us has been close to death. I had hernia surgery. I wasn't close to death, but I took a walk. Our mom was sitting on a park bench. I seen the light, but it wasn't my time. So a boat she was sailing solo down the East Coast from Nova Scotia was caught in a horrible gale. For day and night, she watched the sails and got torn to shreds. The waves pounded her mast into matchsticks. The cold sapped her energy. Every minute she expected to die. But somehow the boat held together and she made it through. Have you ever been in your life that situations put you in a boat and you done felt shipwrecked and you just going and there's waves, there's water, there's emotions, there's frustration, there's upset. And you're like, okay. As she staggered onto shore, a resolution suddenly crystallized. She's always hated being a lawyer, so she decided to quit her job. Was leaving the law the reason that Mary went through that ordeal? Only on the surface. Mary quit because that ordeal gave her something that made it possible for her to quit, a way to let go of a deep and powerful fear. People thought Mary was a daredevil, sailing alone on a wintry seas, alpine skiing down the toughest trails, scuba diving at extreme depths. She seemed the very model of a woman without fear. But let's look deeper. Who would challenge danger like that unless fear were an issue in her life? People often chase danger they're at least afraid of to distract them from the part of life that scares them most. Mary grew up in one of those high power, high pressure families. Her parents were incredibly judgmental about anything she did that didn't show excellence and ambition. They constantly dangled the carrot of approval in front of her, but barely let her have a nibble. She was starving for approval, and like a starving people, she terrified of not getting what she was hungry for. So Mary spent her life living up to what she imagined were other people's expectations. Sometimes we live up to other people's expectations. I lived up to the stereotype of the world I didn't have a White House and a picket fence, but I got married, had 2 kids. I love them both. But I thought that's what you're supposed to do when you got a certain age, get married, have kids. But that wasn't God's purpose for me. That's why Mary became a lawyer. They had been prominent Boston lawyers in her family for generations. The family pressure had been relentless. If Mary didn't become a lawyer, worlds would be crumbled. So the truth is that Mary's whole life had been governed by fear, plunging into high intensity activity that she didn't really find all that scary was the only way she could hide from the force that really scared her, people's disapproval. But when she almost died alone at sea, completely helpless, she realized. So that's what a truly pitiless, overwhelmed force is like. Any force less than that is nothing to be afraid of. Nearly dying at sea was a terrible ordeal, but the reason this happened was so that Mary could get a wonderful gift. The knowledge that she could live her life the way she wanted, unafraid of not being approved. She became a lawyer because her family was a family of lawyers. She was afraid to step out to be something else because if Mary became something else, the family wouldn't approve of it. So Mary could get a wonderful gift, the knowledge that she could live her life the way she wanted, unafraid at last. Reason 3, to show you that you can let go of fear. Smooth sailing over troubled seas. Now we're going into the next section. My pen, I'm messing up the dates. 7/13/23. Section 2, a life without fear. When we discover the meaning of the events in our lives, it's always to complete our growth. Many of us need to grow in a direction of living without crippling fear. Isn't that the point of all education? Not just cosmic kindergarten. You learn to read, so you're not afraid to read anything that's presented to you. No matter how difficult, you learn to write, so you're not afraid of any writing task that comes your way. And the more you learn how to learn, so that when you're faced with having to master some new piece of knowledge, that doesn't scare you. Like Mary, many of us didn't get what we need so we can live without fear. And by the way, when I talk about living without fear, I'm talking about the little phobias many of us have. You know, spiders, snakes, heights. These aren't usually such a big deal. We can work around them without distorting our lives. The fear, I'm talking about the plagues, so many of us, is the kind of hijacks our lives and carries it off into a direction we don't really want to go. I'm talking about the fear of rejection. For example, so we live alone, even though we're hungry for contact, or fear of failure. So we lead impoverished lives, even though we hunger for accomplishments. What does it take to produce people whose lives are governed by fear like this? Unfortunately, it's all too easy. You fill them with dread while denying them the experience of necessary to make them feel that they can't cope with what they're dreading. Mary was constantly threatened with some terrible disapproval. Coping with that storm at sea put any amount of disapproval in perspective. No matter what it is, if some event in your life leaves you desperately hungry to understand Why it happened? The answer might be that it happened to help you let go of a fear and find courage and confidence. If you want to know if this reason fits you, please answer the following questions. Is it hard for you to trust yourself to deal with new situations? New situations. Sometimes. Think about a couple of things that you've done in your life that you regret. Was the main reason you did those things because you were acting out of fear? Yeah. I was acting out of fear to be alone. That's why I went and got married. When you make a decision, is fear an important factor that you weigh in the balance? Would you say that your life is filled with things you're scared of? If you answer yes to 3 or more of these questions, then the reason you went through what you did was to give you something that will make it possible to stop being afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of nothing. Maybe what happened was that a cousin you were close to was killed. I had a cousin, his name was Tony. Very artistic. I was close to him more than I was close to his sisters. I was 12 when he was killed. Yeah, it done something to me. Only maybe your child was born very sick. But everything happens for a reason. The way you understand the gift the cosmos is offering you is by understanding just what gift you need to receive. I don't know what gift I was supposed to receive behind losing a cousin that I was close to. I wasn't close, but I was understanding about his artistic, an artist that drew a house that our grandmother was going to live in, but it didn't come to light because he was killed. If fear is a deep issue for you, then the meaning of what happened to you was to give you what you need to let go of fear. Section 2, a life without fear. Now we're into the big part. Section 3 of this chapter, a smooth sailing through troubled seas. Of the reason 3 to show you that you can let go. Throw it out there. Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let go. Let go. Now you might be thinking. Let's think. I like to think as a kid when I was a daycare teacher. Put your thinking cap on. Put it on. Think. Breathe. Think. Thinking about it. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it so far, but how did I get what I need so I can let go of my fear? Realize that the catastrophe has already happened. Yet you survived. I survived my car accidents. And I'm thankful because I'm still here for my grandchildren and my children and my brother and people that I know. Realize that the catastrophe has already happened, yet you survived. You're still intact. Yeah, all intact. Although you may have realized it, may not have realized it at first, the experience of facing your catastrophe eventually force you to see that your fear is irrelevant. You've been given a gift designed to help transport you outside the realm of fear. It doesn't have to be complicated Sometimes you just look and you can see it easy. Let me tell you what Jeff, a senior investigator of a major police force, told me. I I had kind of crummy childhood. My father left us, and my mother was this hippie nut. I mean, she couldn't cope. She couldn't earn money. She just dragged us around the country from place to place. I had to basically be the parent to my younger sister, but there was no one to be my parent. I don't think I ever had a childhood. Did someone out there had to raise their siblings because a parent wasn't there to be a parent? It all had to do with fear. My childhood was a very scary thing a child can imagine, but I had to deal with it, and I did, he said. For example, when I was 14, I got home from school, and one day I could immediately tell there was some kind of big trouble. My mother was drunk. I had a stepfather. I'm finished. I would come home. He was drunk. Sometimes yelling, screaming, hollering. Yeah, PTSD from Vietnam. My mother was a drunk and scared. I just had the sense we had to get out of there fast. Stuff like this had happened before. I packed us up. I got my mother in the car and I drove. Remember, I was 14 to my sister's school so we could pick her up. Then we got on the highway and headed out of state. I drove until my mother sobered up enough to drive. I turned out that she'd borrowed money from this real bad guys. For all I know, they would have sold us into prostitution to get back what they were owed. But I've always known that those years were a wonderful gift in some way. I saw over and over again that I never had to be afraid after that. Never, ever I've been, well, pretty much fearless my whole life. Now apply this to yourself. Here are some examples. If your child was born sick, the catastrophe has already happened. Now you know what's really important in life. Now you know how strong you are. Now you've been given what you need to let go of the needless fear. If a cousin you were close to was killed in the senseless car crash, the catastrophe has already happened. You could spend the rest of your life afraid, but now that you know how precious life is, you can see how important it is to live your life without fear. This perspective is what you need to let go of your fear. If your spouse walked out on you, the catastrophe has already happened. You know what it's like to live with a sword hanging over your head, and you know it's not worth living like that. Your new understanding allows you to stop being afraid. I'm not afraid. Here's a story that illustrates in depth just how this happens. Section 4. Does anyone have any fortune cookies? Steve was 37, a handsome guy who looked forlorn, like a man who's lost his dog. After college, he got a grant that made it possible for him to travel around the world for a couple of years of studying runaway kids as young as 7 who live on the streets of the cities of San Pueblo, Calcutta. Steve wanted to find out how these kids survive. When he returned home, he was seized with the idea of writing a novel based on what he'd seen. He worked in the bookstore to support himself while he wrote. A decade later, he'd written 2 long, searing novels filled with anger at the world that didn't want the worst parts of life shoved in its face. He couldn't get them published. I know. I have to come with terms that the facts I've wasted my youth, Steve said, just wasted it. That's my catastrophe. Now I have to move on. But because it doesn't make any sense, it's too big a mistake to ignore. It's it just has to make sense. There's got to be a reason in terms of something I've learned, maybe, or something I've got that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. Because the only reason I have now is is a bad one. That there's something wrong with me. And I can't live with that. I mean, it's like I can't go on thinking that I'm the kind of guy who throw his low youth away without building anything. So what does it mean? Do you have any fortune cookies? Steve answered the four diagnostic questions I gave you. He came up with four strong yes. I told him that meaning of what happened to him was getting what he needed to let go of his fear. Steve got lost in thought. Finally, he said, I don't know. There were so many parts of life I thought were stupid. They were made they made me very angry. I was to stay above it all and write brilliant novels. That was 10 years ago. That's when you were supposed to say, okay, this isn't working, and you move on to something else. But I didn't move on. And after those first couple of years, I think I knew that the reason I was continuing to waste my time was because I really was afraid of life. Did you become afraid of life? Afraid to move on? Move on from a relationship? Move on from a different job? And we should ask God, is this where you want me to be? I was afraid I wasn't good enough. I was afraid I would just break apart in the face of difficulties of life. Sometimes we break down and show myself to be a very small, mediocre person. So you're right, Myra. I think I'm afraid of everything. But how can I overcome my fears? Be the reason why I wasted so many years of my life. I asked Steve to tell me something specific he'd been afraid of. Well, I was afraid of going to work for some big corporation. What? You were afraid? What happened? What were you afraid what happened there? I just know not do well, not fit in, not be happy. It will be a disaster. There was a note of false bravo in his voice, bravado in his voice as he answered my question. And if you were laughing off a catastrophe that really terrified him, and then what? Eventually they fired me, I guess. And what would happen then? Well, it would all been such a waste. I'd feel terrible. I paused. Isn't that where you were now? You are now? I said almost in whisper. Steve looked at me with incredible feeling in his eyes. It's exactly where I am now, he said in a low, husky voice, his brow crumbling. That was the point, I said softly. Everything you were afraid of has already happened. There's nothing more to be afraid of. So, you're saying that the reason I wasted my life so far anyway was so that I didn't have to be afraid of wasting my life? Isn't that what makes you scared of anything? I said, you were scared. Now it happened. Now you see that you can cope. I mean, I see you standing here. You don't look like a basket case. And you're not alone in your situation. Lots of people can't move forward in life until the thing they're most afraid of happens to them and liberates them from their fear. Steve got up from the chair he'd been sitting in. He started pacing around the room the way people sometimes do when they're having something big to chew on. I could tell he was on the verge of saying something. Then he came over to the chair, put his hands on the back of it, leaned forward. Let me tell you about my father. Huh? He was one of those Korean War guys. When he got out, he worked as a technician in the defense industry. Companies would keep losing a contract, and my dad would keep getting laid off. As he got older and his skills got old, it was harder and harder for him to get a job. He worked incredibly hard, but instead of getting ahead, he always kept falling behind. It broke his spirit. My father's life scared the crap out of me. You really can waste an entire life. And to do that working at a job you don't really care about, how could I not be afraid? Steve sighed. You're right. My fear was controlling my life, and I didn't even know it. I had to live my fear to loosen the grip on me. Sometimes we got to live in our fear in order for us to loosen the grip. So we read, does anyone have any fortune cookies? Also, letting go. Let go of certain things that you don't have control over them. God has control of everything. He has a control when he put breath in your body. He wakes you up. A life without fear. Smooth sailing over troubled seas. Sailing takes me away where you got to sail over your troubled seas. Reason 3 on this Thankful Thursday was to show you that you can let go of your fear. We will pick up next Thursday on moving forward with courage. I want you to remember to study with excitement, meditate with intentions, inspire others, remember to laugh hysterically, and elevate yourself to the highest potential. Peace on reading by Myron Kirschbaum. It's a good book. Everything happens for a reason.